Hi guys, so this is Joey or Rowan in the final segment of the Blue Moon Ritual Guide video. So to start off with this, we're going to start off with the energy raising, which comes after the last video where we mentioned invocation and ritual observance, so the meditating, and before that the invoking of the goddess. So energy raising is done to bring your energy up so that you can perform acts of magic and divination and connect on a spiritual level to raise up the energy and put your energy out there, and then afterwards you ground it. So to raise your energy before you start in spell work, there's a number of different ways in which you can do this. It depends greatly on where you are, the amount of space you have available, and your own personal preferences. For example, you could dance, you could sing, you could chant. You could play a musical instrument. A lot of people like to play a drum. What I have done in the past sometimes is I slap my knees and then clap my hands. And it's just a quick and easy way of raising up your energy levels, getting the blood pumping, getting your energy going, and then you will focus that into the next act. So Scott Cunningham suggests chanting for the Esbat, I pray to the moon. You could also say I honour the goddess, or any simple line over and over and over and over and over and over until you're entering into that change of energy, change of awareness, that you are then raising your energy up, that you are then going to push out into spell work, divination work, etc. If you have the space, you could dance or do ritual gestures and motions. You can look up things that you can do, or you can just do it as it comes to you, which is probably more effective, because then you are just doing what feels natural to you. Quite often I chant the earth my body chant, the earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Earth, air, fire and water, join me now as one. And I sing that or chant that over and over. And then you would commit this energy into your spell work or divination. So it's raising your own power to put into the spell work for more dramatic results. Now, depending on what you're doing for the spell work, depends on how you're going to utilise your energy, and there is probably thousands and thousands of different spells and ways of doing it. I will use the example of my spell bottles, because I've shown you how I created that already. Now I would then probably hold the spell bottle in my hands under the moonlight and maybe call on each herb that I put into it and say that I charge you with prosperity. And while I was doing this, I would visualize in my mind's eye the end result that I wanted. Now you could visualize, if you were doing it for prosperity, you with the prosperity that you needed, you could visualize the situation in your head that would come from this prosperity coming to pass. So for me, I would visualize being able to afford what it is that I'm putting the spell forward for. So in my mind, maybe if you were putting it in your mind for a new home, unlocking the door to a new home and being happy with that situation, or if you were visualizing it to pay certain bills, visualize yourself signing the check or whatever to pay it off and to go, and really see yourself doing it in the future. Obviously then you can also do divination, so your awareness is heightened, and I would write down any interpretations and any divination questions that you ask. So if you use the tarot, for example, write down each card and what comes to you at that point in time. It might be a slightly different interpretation of the tarot to normal, but your awareness is heightened and you've already invoked the goddess and communed with her. So trust your instincts. Always ask for the goddess's blessing when you're doing positive magic. There's no point doing negative magic in a circle space because you're dishonouring the goddess. You can, after you have then finished this spell work, it might be worth leaving something to thank the goddess, an offering on the altar, or some people go outside and scatter their offering if they were inside in the first place. So you're giving thanks to the goddess and giving something back. Then the next step is then to earth the power. You do this because after you've raised your power up, you then may have an excess of power within yourself and within the circle that, you know, you don't want it flying everywhere, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it. You want it to be controlled in the way that you want it to, and any excess then to be earthed back to the goddess. So you can do this in two ways. One is a physical way and one is a meditative way. I would do the meditative way first. So to visualize yourself grounding, you can do this in a number of ways. You can imagine yourself with your back to a tree, putting your hands on the tree, maybe tucking your feet in some roots that are just sticking through the ground, and then gently releasing all your energy down through earth into the ground. Some people visualize actually having roots coming out of their feet, going into the ground, and the excess energy being grounded off that way. There are many, many different variations of meditative ways to ground off energy, and if you're unsure, that's something that you can look into quite easily and research. I would use the one with the tree and the ground. You could use one with sand, and you're on the beach and you tuck your feet into the sand and ground off the energy that way, and that's, you just again visualize all, you know, the excess energy grounding down into the ground and dissipating. Then the physical way is called wine and cake, or cake and ale, or simple feast, and is a part of every Wiccan ritual at the end, where there is usually a drink and some sort of food. They're usually appropriate to depending on what you're doing. And for the SBAT, that is crescent cakes. I'm going to be making my own later this afternoon. I'm going to video record myself making crescent cakes. That will be interesting because I've never made them before, but we'll have a go. So for the cakes and wine or cakes and ale, what you consume is entirely up to you. It doesn't have to be an alcoholic beverage if you are underage or uncomfortable with having an alcoholic drink to finish. Milk and lemonade and honey-based drinks are all perfectly appropriate for the Blue Moon SBAT ritual. You could have juice, you could have tea, you could have whatever, you could have water, is fine. And then something edible, cake-wise. And you eat that, and there's a little blessing in here that you can say before you do so. This little blessing is again in the Wicca book, Scott Cunningham book. So you hold up the cup of wine between your hands to the sky, and in the circumstance of the SBAT, I would hold it up to the moon and say, "Gracious Goddess of Abundance, bless this wine and infuse it with your love," or whatever you're drinking. "In your names, Mother Goddess and Father God, I bless this wine." For the SBAT, you could just mention the goddess, but then for balance, maybe you do want to mention both. The god is still present, he's just in the background. Then hold up your plate of cakes, breads, biscuits, or whatever. Some people use fruit. Some people pre-buy stuff, some people make stuff. It's entirely up to you. Powerful God of the harvest, bless these cakes and infuse them with your love. In the names of Mother Goddess and Father God, I bless these cakes, or whatever. You can then consume some, and you could put some out for offering as well. For example, when I do this, I will get a little shot glass and put a little bit of the alcohol I'm going to have in and leave it on Morrigan's altar as an offering to her. as well. And you could scatter some of the food outside if you wanted to. Leave it out for the birds, that sort of thing, giving back to nature. And that generally is the end of the actual ritual. You then thank the gods. I will read you this little passage that Scott Cunningham says here, because this is quite nice. This can be done in specific ways with gestures, chants or music, or can be improvised on the spot. Some Wiccans think of this as dismissing the deities, but I shudder at the very notion. Imagine some puny little Wiccan telling the goddess and god they can leave. Besides, they never leave. They exist within ourselves and inside of all of nature. Thank them for their attention and ask them to come again. That's it. So I would improvise that and just say, honour the goddess and god as you thank them. And if you have a goddess candle burning specifically, that you could then put that candle out, and then you break the circle. You go round to each corner with your athame and thank the element appropriate for blessing your ritual. Now, if you have written, as I did, oh goodness, it's further along. If you have written something for each element, like I said yesterday that I had done, I wrote something by myself for each element. So I would then repeat that, but then change the invoking to thanking. So I would say, for air, in the darkness of night, in the soft lunar night, I thank the element of air. A midnight breeze, wind through the trees, for voice of the goddess. On this night of the full moon, I thank thee for thy boon, that thy have watched over and protected my right. Hail and farewell. So that's just changing the wording slightly to honour each element as you go. Air, fire, water, earth and spirits. But I tend to say you may come and go at your leisure, just so it's not me commanding them to go. I thank them, say they can come and go as they will, because you have to be honouring them. You then take your wand or athame and you draw the energy back into the wand that you used to cast your circle. See the other video for casting the circle. I go in the clockwise direction. Again, I go from the same way as I came. Some people go anti-clockwise. And I imagine all of that white, blue light going back into the circle, go around in a full circle, and when you get back to the beginning, I say, circle is open, but air unbroken. Merry meet, merry part, merry meet again. And that is the end. That is the end of the Blue Moon ritual. So today I'm going to record myself baking some cakes later this afternoon, hoping that that goes well. I am going to make another video after this, just a brief one to say this is the day before the Blue Moon, what I'm going to spend my day doing with regards to the Blue Moon. And that will be it for today, and we will make some videos tomorrow, set up preparation, maybe a little bits of my ritual just to show you, not the personal parts, but there you go. So that's finishing the Blue Moon ritual Espats, and yes, and I will make a separate video saying what I'm up to today. So merry meet.